Grim After Dark, starring John and Danny.
Let's hope this all works, chat. Keep us informed, man. This is our least planned episode ever, and that says a lot because we put out some trash. Stat Checks Nathaniel Hennig joins us tonight to talk about how we can best balance the podcast landscape with our unique and brand new podcast balance data slate. And also what it takes to be relevant in the content creation world. And we're going to go over some of our old favorite podcasts, see if we can update them for the modern age. I am a hydrocephalic version of Quentin Tarantino, and even though we are an elitist group of neckbeards, it's still going to be pretty grim after dark. My first co-host tonight, he's a classic high hairline Harry. It's Danny McDevitt. And also Val, and then also Nathan.
Right. Everyone's mics are hot. Everyone's mics are on.
All right. Everybody talk at the same time.
Who's Whoopi Goldberg? Danny.
Spoiler.
Danny's Whoopi Goldberg.
That does make the most sense.
Spoiler, there's two scenes tonight. This one and the one of just me. And I know which one Val's not going to be switching to. Guys, there's so many. Oh, my God. Of course, it proves me wrong on that.
Perfect.
Guys, there's so many people here that we had to have a 1990s style electronics store TV stand up.
Let's see what the other ones look like. Hold on. Let's go to the couch cam.
It
kind of
works.
works.
It kind of works.
Couch cam kind of works. Not great. Not great.
My forehead.
Shut up.
You're hiding this best feature. That is quite the couch pile, Joel Atkins. Thank you. Before we get going, Danny, the comments from last week's episode, absolutely raging about your lack of knowledge on horses. We have a person here who said, so poor on your knowledge of horses versus tanks in war. The Polish riders defeated the German tanks. Also, horses gallop at 40 to 50 miles an hour. Do you think the horses defeated the tanks, Danny, because of the amount of glue they got into the tracks?
Potentially. I mean, they really clogged them up and stopped them. They say stop you in your tracks. What they mean is because of a ground up horse in your axle.
Gum up said tracks with a horse.
And then someone else jumped in and said, where are we here? Danny has clearly not plumbed the depth of horse names. As you said, Constantine was a ridiculous name for a horse, if I remember right. So I did find some here from the Kentucky Derby.
Okay.
We have No Soup for You. I don't know if you realize, but that's Seinfeld.
Oh, I understand that reference.
There's Riding Miss Daisy. And the quality Bodacious Tatas was a horse that ran in 1985. But yeah, do we still think Constantine is a terrible name for a horse?
Yes.
I was looking up Slanesh themed soul grinder conversions, and Bodacious Tatas was one of the keywords I tried.
It's good.
That's a good one. What about Odor in the Court, a runner in the 1996? Is that a better, worse name than Constantine?
No, that actually fits because horses notoriously smell like shit. So it all kind of works out. That's one of the many reasons I also hate horses. So if we can get that on record, I just don't like horses in general. Like I'm going to be biased against this.
That's fair.
Is this because you're Alaskan and you only love moose?
No, I just don't like horses. I think they're a bad animal.
Yeah,
they don't even taste good.
That's fair.
Actually, as someone who has had a little equine tartare,
okay,
I would say it was quite delicious. It wasn't as gamey a meat as one might have thought it would be. It was quite good. Interesting texture.
What we've learned here is FLGN pays enough to feed us in horse meat. So that's really the important thing to take away here.
False.
It's us and the United Kingdom.
You just take a little trip south of the border. You can get some horse tacos.
You want some horse tacos? I can get you some horse tacos.
I know a guy.
Uber Eats for lunch, bud. We get no prop. Head on up to Quebec. Get ourselves some horse tacos.
Nathan, I was thinking more some horse poutine personally myself. I don't know.
I'm sure it exists.
Nathan, what's your opinion? We talked at length last week about the goodest boy Constantine and his noble rider Lord Solaris. What's your take on the new horsey model?
I think if you model him appropriately with a base that is instead of a Reaver Titan, I think is the class of Titans under him. Instead of a Reaver Titan head, you put just the pile of regular guardsman bodies that he has to walk across as he goes to the other side of the battlefield. Feels more appropriate for the nobility of that model. Everybody else dies, but I am clean and spotless because I am the Imperial nobility.
Yeah, and literally the people getting crushed underfoot by the Imperial machine horse is a thing. Val, you were away last week. Does seeing models like this drive you away from Warhammer Fantasy and towards the more classic horse-based miniatures of Warhammer 40,000?
Not at all. Not at all. I was trying to explain to Tech Priest Dicky the other day, in fact, yesterday, as a matter of fact, when he suggested that I play 40K with him. And I said that it's just, I can't think of something that I want to do less. So, mechanical war horses, I got one already, all right? I don't need these new
What he calls his penis.
I used it on Saturday.
I don't need these new fan-dangled mechanical. I got OG Archaon in the Napoleon pose. I don't give a... Who cares? Who cares? It's all been done, baby. It's all been done, and it's happening right here in the casita.
That's right. Very excited to hear insight into the current 40K meta and state of gaming. Welcome along, Val, as always.
Hey!
Speaking of which, Nathan, why did we drag you in today? What are we doing?
I don't even know anymore. What are we doing today?
Amazing.
I think last time we presented the podcast ranking system that I can't remember the name that we came up with. And then
we came up with a very juvenile name.
We did.
It was hilarious.
And we'll remember it later. But for now,
just keep talking. I'm scrolling up.
We have a podcast balance data slate that we wanted to talk a little bit about today. And much like GW, we want to deliver maximum change for minimal effort. So we've planned this out in a great detail, our podcast balance data slate for Warhammer 40K and associated.
So much detail. That's why I let it know that it's the least prepared episode. But yeah, so what exactly are we looking for with the podcast balanced update?
So we really wanted to take the top level podcasts and make them better, but we also wanted to bring up
Danny, we're fine. He's making no changes. Don't worry. Please continue.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, this view doesn't work anymore, guys.
When we need to bring up here, I'll put my hands up higher so it doesn't get cut off. We need to bring the podcast at the bottom upwards or shove them out of the meta completely. We've kind of decided to mix that approach up and see how it works out.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah,
so
no,
hit us with your first
absolutely zero risk enterprise that we're engaging in here. I haven't seen any massive Twitter storms going on recently involving shots fired between various Warhammer content creators and corporations involved in the industry. No, this is a complete risk-free topic idea, gentlemen, and I'm happy to be on the show with you tonight.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good to have management along when we do stuff like
thanks
this.
for managing our risk, Val, and tacitly supporting everything that we're doing by being on the show tonight.
Yeah.
Now, before we do start on this, Danny, do you maybe want to explain to the viewing and listening audience the difference between terrible journalism and satire?
I mean, do I have to? That's sad that we do have to do this.
It's really sad that you do have to. I believe what we do here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, but what
terrible
we do
journalism
dark here is satire.
It depends. It depends whose facts you believe, John. But let's be honest. Comparing us probably, and look, I don't think we're nearly as bad as they are, but the Daily Show or something like, or John Oliver Tonight, that's what we're going for here. Clearly we're surpassing it, going above and beyond, taking it to the next level. But what we're not is CBS News Tonight with Connie Chung. Like, look, we're not here reporting the real news or factual things, just stupid opinions.
That's right.
Bad opinions.
Yeah.
And taking a poke of fun at the people whose egos are inflated over stupid things that we see on the internet.
Joe Aikens coming in hot with us. So Grimdark is the podcast equivalent of Space Marines. Does that make you all the bad players bringing the whole faction down?
It's clearly chapter tactics, but whatever.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to them in our balance here later on. But good job firing the first shot.
Oh,
don't jump the gun on the joke. Jeez.
I do want to point out
I have very little relevant things to add, so go ahead. Sorry, John, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
The lead designer of Warhammer 40K went to the Coventry GT with Space Marines and lost every game.
Was that really the head designer of Warhammer 40K? Not just some person copying his name?
That would be just as hilarious, but poorer for my narrative. So I want to think that he lost every game by 3 points, and that's why that one Space Marine secondary is now worth 1 point more.
Oh, he's justified.
Yeah, he's justified.
This is Stu?
But again, Stu Black. Or Stu,
Stu Black. All right. Okay. Well, let's have a. Why don't you guys talk amongst yourselves? I'm going to pull up the list. We'll see. We'll do a little diagnosis here.
Though I do want to say this probably isn't a guy taking the most optimized list, because what looks worse? Going and losing every game with your army, or going and just winning every game with your army because you designed the rules? I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
John, it's clearly the second one. I mean, you want to win because you wrote the rules. You want to look like a tough badass who understands your game, not somebody who went 0-5 at the tournaments.
Hey, you want to have at least a credible showing.
Like, even though he's 50-50.
Yeah. You want to hit 500.
Yeah.
That's a perfectly balanced game right there. You see, I brought this optimized list and I won half and I lost the other half. Perfectly balanced.
So he also threw the towel in? Still.
Apparently.
I'm glad that, after being critical of deriding various podcasts, I'm glad that I just skipped straight to the top. Let's just beat up on Stu Black. We're going on.
Went right out of podcast.
Let's just go for the throat here, guys. Let's go for the kill shot. Let's take this snake by the head, not the tail.
Turn it sideways.
All people should know. No one's going to hear us doing this, so that doesn't really matter.
As I say about all shows that I'm occasionally on, we're a podcaster's podcast. It's it's very influential. The people who listen, they matter, and that's especially the people listening live right now. You guys, as I live and breathe. You know what I mean?
How can you not refer to him as the head of the snake? That has some other connotations that are probably not good.
Could I quickly Google that one?
Podcast Balance Data Slate. Podcast 1. What have you got? Professional scientific doctor and official representative of Stat Check, a very important statistics-based thing, providing a lot of good information for Warhammer.
Why don't we start off with Stat Checks Balance Data Slate blurb, John?
This is the equivalent of Stu Black going 5-0 at a tournament because he took some busted rules he wrote.
Are we talking about the Art of War Balance Data Slate?
I've been saying this all week. You balance Stat Check. Is there a way you could make Innes Wilson likable?
No. He's too Scottish.
It's true.
That is
the
true.
accent makes it hard. The other note is that we do need to get Anthony up on his basic math. I know you guys tried and are helping with it, so we're working on that. For Jeremy and Cliff, I have no changes. They are perfectly balanced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about Curry?
Curie is Jeremy. Jeremy is Curie.
No, that's impossible. Curie is Curie.
Oh, sorry. Well, Curie also no changes.
Okay, perfect. Jeremy, get rid of that guy. Curie, keep him. He's the great one right there.
Got it. I'll write that down. I'll add that to the data slate right now. So unlike Games Workshop, we will have a living rule set.
In 3 months, though, it'll come out, but not right now. But how are things going over in Stat Check? Because you guys are doing a whole bunch with kind of week to week. You have Cliff kind of posting the statistical updates. You guys are collating just a ton of information on a weekly basis, as well as producing your show every week. How are things going on that front?
So we're actually putting together something really interesting right now because we're at 98,272 games recorded. So we've almost hit 100,000 games since Nachmund in the previous mission pack. So we've hit a bunch of games where we're starting to look at like really big data trends, and we're going to see kind of how that plays out towards the end of this whole season and maybe the addition essentially. Kind of see if we can look at some really big data trends and where changes happen and how movements and factions and veteran versus non-veteran player win rates change over time. But otherwise, we make the podcast every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is live with me, Innes, and Anthony. We will talk about, this week we're going to talk about Coventry because Anthony flew across the Atlantic Ocean to spend a weekend playing at a UK tournament with Innes and a bunch of folks. So they're going to be talking about their experience this week. Otherwise, Innes is making bonus content every week where they focus more on the WTC, so team events, and then also on interviewing people from the greater 40K community. So there's an interview in our bonus content right now with him and Mitch Beard that I think just got released to the public as well.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
So
Katie Sands is coming in chat by saying, Katie Sands says, y'all still playing 40K? Buddy, do I have bad news about some lore for you? But I'm not going to spoil that at all. So it's like Stat Check. You're not going to change much. Just get rid of that Jeremy guy. Keep the Curie guy around. That seems like a fair one. What is our next updated podcast?
Oh boy, I had this up in a list, and then I was thinking we weren't going to do it at all, so I removed it. All right, here we go.
If only something was pre-planned and written down about what we were going to do.
There's no preparation here whatsoever. It's totally fine.
We're on the H1.
I guess we can go all the way to the bottom and we can talk about Veterans of the Long War next, who really we're just going to send for some lessons and apologies and correctly providing them.
I do want to point out, by the way, Danny, what a great time we had at the Long War Doubles event, exclusively through Frontline Gaming.
Yeah, what a great time. Definitely recommend signing up for that.
Awesome.
We had awesome opponents, didn't we, for every single one of our games, for our 3 games that we got to play in it?
We did. And we got free loot, which is always a reason for doing something. Some great sportsmanship there. So what you think? Because that, as Val, and you throw this in here too, that kind of exploded this week. The Spiky Bits article versus the painter, is it Hidalgo? I forget the guy's name.
Just time out here, guys. I just want to make sure that we're not just pulling in. Actually, why don't we do it? Because I'm pretty sure Veterans of the Long War is an entirely different podcast.
Isn't that Spiky
really?
Podcast?
Are they separated now from Spiky Bits?
No. There's the Long War, which is our friends Kenny and the other guys. And
that's right.
And then there's actually
one from California.
And then there's actually one, I don't know if it still exists, but it was called Veterans of the Long War, which existed before them. And I remember when they stole the name, they actually brought the guy on and they were like, hey, bro, we keep it icy. We're keeping the name. But thanks for coming on the show.
DFG Radio coming in, judging us, if you will, to let us know that Veterans of the Long War was a different dead podcast.
And you know what else is dead? His podcast listings, unless he brought it back and I haven't noticed yet. But would love to see him again.
So,
man, this is embarrassing. This is
another change for the data slate. Is that we need to make sure that
there's 2 veterans.
Is that it's not Veterans of the Long War, but just the Long War podcast. There we go. Got to get those
to make sure that Danny and John do enough research to realize that they're 2 separate podcasts. Is really the balanced data slate needed for this one right here.
And then, John, you had a special note for Frontiers, a wonderful podcast from the Best in Tabletop Network.
I did. 40K Frontiers. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's a fantastic podcast. Takes you through the international 40K scene from Australia to Korea, just kind of all over the cool little meta. It's a fantastic show. Terrible delivery system, though. So is there a way we can buff the delivery system for this?
I think we need to, like with Canada, we need to increase the number of internets that they've got.
Yeah. Val, you have your shifty moves going on.
This just in. No one registered at the Coventry GT3 Day under the name Stu Black.
Man, my fact checking flawless tonight. Let me keep this original audio up and then also add some audio that says, I'm sorry that you were offended by what I said. I think that's the best way
Damn.
we
Looks
can
like
deal
he
with it.
slipped out of the grip again.
The head of the snake, if you will. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, your words,
Val
not
from
mine,
corporate
pal.
letting us
No,
know.
those are exactly your words.
I just really wish that
Can't pin that
Val
on
would have
me.
replaced his bottle with vodka between these shots, because with the glasses and then randomly coming in, it would be a little bit more.
I did hit a vape pen once in the early show and started coughing really loudly in everyone's ears. That was some time ago, though.
See, Stat Checks bonus content is in its interviewing W2C people and kind of introducing that community. Our bonus content is Val coughing really loud in your ear after hitting vape too much. Yes,
This just in from chat. Did he check the 2-day? Did not. I did not check the 2-day. I'm going back in.
All right, fill for time. So yeah, 44K Frontiers are really good. I mean, do you feel right now that a lot of the content that's coming out here is mostly sort of US centric? I know we have Fireside Chat that started coming out with like David and Vic from the UK and some other more UK centric shows coming out. But is there a problem in just having so much American based content?
There's always a problem with it, is that people think that the meta only exists in like the United States or in the UK, essentially. Because even if you move outside of the United States, a lot of the focus is on just the UK meta. There is really good content, though, coming out of both the Australian meta. So it's not just Frontiers, but there are other shows that are focused just on the Australia, which is like down under 40K. And then the UK has new stuff coming out that focuses more on Europe holistically, but also on the experiences of players in the UK, which is like 40K Fireside, like you said as well. Also Contact Lost, which is, I believe, by the Polish team captains, who are running an excellent show that focuses on mainland Europe, essentially, and also on the Polish scene.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a worry naming your podcast after audio problems? Like, are you just kind of playing with fire?
Who's watching something right now?
What?
Is someone actually watching another show while being on the show? I think that is a 40K.
Actually, my wife watching something in the other room.
Okay, all right.
As you watch me steadily get more embarrassed looking.
Oh, great. Now we're going to get demonetized, too.
I was just pretty sure John was like, I'm just going to watch something else now. That's all right.
We need playing Football Manager 23, 25 season, baby.
Let's
go. Perfect. So yeah, like I said, lots of kind of more stuff coming out here. Do you think there's a correlation in data between win rates and improvements and kind of an increase in an international podcast scene or international content creation scene, rather than keeping just kind of US-centric tactics and help? Val, yeah.
This just in. No Stu Black registered on the 2-day event either.
Did you check the 2-day narrative?
Son of a bitch. No, I didn't. And I don't think it existed.
It doesn't exist.
Do you think perhaps he was expunged from the record?
Maybe he uses power to be like, yo, if you want anything released ever again.
All right, guys.
You want this new...
Do you want me to look at our data?
I'm going to the Wayback Machine.
Okay. Next,
at what point do we let him know that I just made it up?
What?
No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Okay.
So,
So you
yeah,
said
do you think
anything of value
correlation? Yeah.
I don't know if you can look at win rates and do that. I think it's too many variables to look at whether or not somebody consumes specific content and performs better or not. Although perhaps that just undermines all of Art of War's actual marketing ploy. I don't know. That listening to their content will make you a better player.
Can you put a tier list on content? Also, chat coming in strong saying Hellstorm pulled up Stu Black on BCP earlier today.
Got him. That's what I'm doing. I'm going on there right now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. What have we got? So, Frontiers, check them out. Fantastic guys. Just tell them to be more balanced. But yeah, what's next on our list of to-dos?
We have signals from the Frontline next, which I assume that
signals
both
from
Danny
good old signals.
and John have significant notes for a balanced data slate for them.
Significant notes. Danny, why don't you start with your significant notes?
Well, first of all, get a better, replace at least one of the hosts, because I've seen some just terrible things come out of that guy's mouth. And
Danny, stop talking. It's going on the whiteboard. It'll never happen.
I'll do it. I swear. I'll do it.
So Signals, though, has taken like a lot of over the past year and a half. If you look at what it was, which is kind of, and Val, correct me if I'm wrong before you color in your face here, but it was recent as study, being like, well, this stuff's coming out this week. We have a tournament coming up. Well, it's episode 590.
It was it was like the scenes with Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now, except worse facial hair, basically.
Fair. There was some unique choices.
Mm-hmm.
What is Signals now? Oh wait, Val's pretending.
Contact lost,
so he doesn't have to answer.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that was to me. That was to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be an upbeat, news show about tabletop gaming, mostly Warhammer.
Yeah, for sure.
So if I said the show would be improved by increasing the amount of WAs at the beginning, middle, and end, and turning Seth green, are you saying those wouldn't be improvements? Or
I would say you would go from the 3 people watching it to 1 when Danny and I drop out immediately upon the Ying.
So only one person watching it.
Yeah.
That's a bit harsh. I'm sure
it's very harsh and also not true.
Also not true at all.
I thought these were suggestions to make it better.
Yeah. No, there's probably something there. They've been bringing on a lot of guests lately. Some good guests. I mean, we just gave up on that, getting good guests.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Fair.
Yeah. But to be honest,
what
I
happens?
can't think of anything to make them better.
So what happens now is I just don't do anything, and then I'm like, "Oh, Val, it's you this week," or "Oh, Dickie, it's you this week again," and then occasionally someone's like, "Oh yeah, I booked myself next month," and then you forget about it.
You know what we should do? Yeah. We should just put the booking link in the description. And just
book yourself as a guest.
Just have Grim After Dark pure open mic, and we don't even vet it. We don't even look. It's just roulette. Whoever responds to the link I throw up first gets to be the third wheel on this casting couch over here, and we just go off to the races.
That's
Grim After Dark chat roulette edition.
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, and we just cut people. Captain Andrew, so that'd be me, the one person telling Seth how to pronounce the AOS top 10 names. I guess, Danny, that's something we have to be thankful for, is we don't often have to pronounce names. Ben Jurek, I know I mispronounced your name literally every time. But yeah, I think though, personally, feuds aside, fake feuds aside, I enjoy it for what it is. Signals is kind of a good way to catch up with the goings on in the week, the sales that are happening. And also it's a great place to see what's coming out for Frontline. We do, Danny, a really shitty job at advertising the product. That
what an amazing segue to talk about something that Frontline Gaming is doing. But also, what I used to really love about Signals is that I feel like Signals used to be a really essential news source. And I think one thing that any news-based show that's not doing weekly results and stuff, like something like whatever that show is, and Thursday show, anything that's doing news that's I don't know, ever since Warhammer Community, those types of shows kind of became a bit redundant. Or anything that does sort of what's coming up right now. So it does make it a little bit harder. But I do and did like about Signals is the enthusiasm it generates around Frontline Gaming events specifically, and sort of the community of that sort of little segment of events. So maybe maybe we should license it out. Maybe they should license it out to the UKTC, to the Marshals Conference. It could just become the hub. Yeah, Signals from the other side, or the flyover country.
Well, I mean, it is. super popular here. People in chat letting us know love. I mean, damn, they have here tickets for Cherokee available now, which just goes to show Kicker's effectiveness and his value to the entire thing. But so as an outsider, Nathan, though, like, what is Signals to you? What is the benefit, and kind of what do you want to see from that kind of show, especially as Val was saying, in a time where Warhammer community kind of outscoops everyone because they make the stuff.
So I think what you're really looking for when you're watching a show like that is not so much the news or the content that it produces, but the people who are involved with it, and whether or not you want to watch those people share their views on events with you. So I like both Seth and Kicker. So even though I could get the news about things from other people or other sources, I want to hear Seth and Kicker provide me with that news and information and their analysis of the news and information that's presented each week.
Val, you swore and threw your glasses off.
Just cut me to my core there. I mean, likable, quality hosts.
Yeah.
Where does irritating rank on your list of good qualities of a regular co-host, if you will?
Depends on the kind of irritating. Are you talking like a foil to your kind, good-natured host? Like,
well, maybe someone who maybe chews Nicorette occasionally and forgets, so he smacks into the mic a bunch, interrupts the host a lot when he's talking, dresses people down in public, wears dumb glasses.
I will say, Val, someone did come in here and say, "Oh God, Val has eyes," which confuses me no end because, yeah.
So if I would rank somebody who browbeats their compatriots pretty low, that's not irritating. I think that is despotic.
I think
is the word I would say.
That's hard feedback. That's hard feedback. That's hard feedback. Hard to hear. I'm sure it's hard for you to say it, and I appreciate your courage,
as it were.
It's important to do, otherwise that other person's ego is just going to get way out of control. And they're going to think they actually matter. So by you talking in that way, you just destroy them to the core. And
might think
really
that they're
hurt them emotionally.
There's a method to the madness.
They might think that they're the top TV on the couch. You can't have that.
Yeah. You would have to make a thumbnail showing that your opinion weighed more, for sure. I think that's the only way around that.
I will say, though, that on the topic of irritating people, that the entire reason that I signed up for this episode to guest it was because Danny told me in another chat that everything I say makes him sad. So, so I was like, man, how can I take this to another level and make Danny sad in person?
Great. Thanks, guys.
As long as we're being honest and not overreacting. But yeah, for sure, definitely check out Signals. Like Val and Nathaniel said, Seth and Kicker have really good energy, great people. Also, this Wednesday, they have a secret that they're telling.
There's a secret will be revealed.
Secret will be revealed.
The secret is wish for more wishes. Also,
wait a minute. Were you guys talking about me?
He was watching League of Legends replays.
Yeah, that was the sound. It wasn't Nathan's wife.
Oh my God. Yeah, all right, cool. Yeah. Sorry, I had something to say a bunch of times. I forgot every time, and now we're here.
Dude, love it.
Host.
Do we want to touch on the next balanced state of sleep?
Yeah, dial it up. Let's go. This hit parade just keeps marching.
Somehow this keeps limping along.
Still better than the tier list episode.
Fair.
From the top of our ranking system in the last episode that I was on is Art of War Down Under, which I wanted to say the only change I want to make is even more Adam Camilleri and continuing on with this trend of no Richard Siegler. That's all I want.
We can't. There's no way to provide more Camilleri than Camilleri does himself.
I think the argument here is that Camilleri is a little OP, so I think this is what we should do, is we should have him read the AOS ITC leaderboard to bring him down a few levels, because no one can butcher a name quite like Adam Calamari.
I mean, I have heard his codex reviews where he reads a stratagem about 3 or 4 times and
That's
still
fair.
doesn't quite.
You got to really like the longer the video, the better the monetization. So you just got to keep rereading it over and over again.
Pretty sure he doesn't post to YouTube. I don't think Art of War Down Under is on YouTube.
I think it's just in podcast form.
Old school, baby.
Can you separate that though? So have instead of having Art of War Down Under, you just have one show called Art of War and one show called Down Under. Maybe that would temper the power a little bit.
Well, I mean, I feel like that would really reduce your SEO. I mean, that'd be as dumb as just naming a 40K theme show the Thursday show and not mentioning anything.
What does that have to do with 40K? Like, who knows?
Yeah, it's all about the state of play. That's all that matters. It's really good stuff.
Well, not everybody can rip off the name of their organization from Chinese philosophers, so that's okay.
Yeah,
and
we got to
use a Space Marine samurai or something. I'm not really sure what that guy is. Like,
not even the right region of the world for the philosopher.
They're prepping
He's from Alaska.
A brand new logo, which is just the Lord Solar riding a kangaroo with robotic legs.
God.
I was thinking more.
You know what?
Super
I like that better than the model that actually was released.
You have terrible opinions, which I love doing for our codex.
So the last one that we've got, and last from our ranking list, I think from last time was Chapter Tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Are they still on the air?
Who we didn't have any changes for, because that is the starting point for everyone's journey. And much like Space Marines, we don't have any changes for them, except maybe, apparently, a long hiatus.
I like that you wrote this joke and didn't realize it hasn't been released for 3 months.
I didn't. You're right. Well, to be fair, neither I nor John noticed.
John must have noticed. My inbox is flooded, and it's still the top performing show on the network.
It's funnier. It's funnier if Nathaniel says it. And I just sit back and watch the chaos. But it does address the kind of the interesting question that 40K being a super complex games, these kind of starter shows that don't necessarily go too in depth and kind of provide that information are like super necessary. Val, I mean, I know, like I said, it's on a little bit of a hiatus now. Matt, obviously, super busy guy, like all of the guys who do that is. What was your thought behind Chapter Tactics? Where do you kind of see it going in the future?
I don't really know. It actually, I thought they did a really good job. I thought they brought in their own sort of different audience, had a totally different vibe from what it was before. And I don't know. I like the energy that they brought to it. I think Chapter Tactics, it's like a brand that we've had on the network. Perhaps we go in a different direction. We are tremendously 40K centric. I.e., it's all we talk about, and there's like a whole other world of things out there. But to be honest with you, I don't know what to do necessarily with.
Whatever. To be fair, in about a month or so, we're going to have Pete back on, and we're going to talk Avatar 2 for the entire hour.
Excellent. They got like my favorite thing about Dice Check taking over Chapter Tactics was everyone bemoaning how like the old Chapter Tactics was great. Whereas in reality, the only thing people loved doing about the old Chapter Tactics was complaining about it. As, I think that's perfect. That means that people do graduate from it, and you do need that sort of entry-level beginner content, I think, for sure. And also, getting back to something that was said before, likable hosts. So, like, if you don't jive with the hosts, a lot of people obviously do. But if you don't jive with the hosts, then, it's maybe not going to be your favorite thing.
That's true.
Right? Yeah. And I said, and right now, like you have like Stat Check, obviously, Nathan, your guys' podcast, super in depth. I mean, if you imagine your first week, you've just got back from the game store, you have your codex, you bought 2 boxes of models that are terrible because you don't know what you're doing. And the first thing you listen to is Stat Check. And you're like, well, we're at a 75% win rate with so-and-so. And they're bringing it up to the 62 because of the balanced data set. You're like, man, did I just get into math as a hobby? And it doesn't necessarily like kind of super go into there. So like Val was saying, chapter tactics is sort of necessary in its place of being a jumping on point. And yeah,
there's like super crunch like shows for those people who are like massively engaged are awesome. But that's going to be a thin slice of the pie, and I think so that they're really good to be like they're really good models. I think for like subscriber, supported and driven shows. But I think when you're doing sort of like a more looking for like a broader slice, it does come down to like I don't know whether or not you can get rapport with your audience, and I don't know necessarily if like you being the absolute bleeding edge of how everything works and all of the stats and numbers necessarily does the trick on its own right? You got to have some personality. We can't all be Ennis Wilson,
We do try
angry,
less
bitter,
onboard people into the hobby than other shows do. So not everybody wants to play 40K competitively. So not everybody is going to want to be funneled into our stuff. Some people will want to be funneled into more hobby oriented content, which is usually video content instead of podcast content, because explaining my painting as I do it glaze by glaze probably isn't very exciting. So first I'm going to brush this glaze on lightly in blue. I know you can't see it, but it's a very light blue, thin, watered down like milk. I don't know. But
those are painting videos you're watching. This is a heads up. That's a really great sort of segue to talking about, like, when I go back into the hobby, and a lot of other people got back into the hobby, independent characters was sort of like the first big breakout show to happen when podcasting happened. Do you guys feel a show like Independent Characters, which was very hobby centric, very narrative centric, famously not competitive centric at all, really? Can that survive or exist in the current environment of 40K, where most of the content is super heavily skewed to the competitive scale?
So the short answer is yes, and I have a longer answer that involves some numbers, because we did this where we looked at.
Danny, why don't you give your medium answer?
I'd love to hear that answer, but go ahead, Danny.
No, I want to hear Nate's answer. Go on, man.
You want to hear the math number?
Oh, we got to distract so we can look up his numbers first.
No, it's okay. I'm going to use the best version of statistics, which are the non-specific ones.
Wonderful.
So if you think of the pie of people going to GTs as you have a number of people going to their first GT, right? So they've gone to no other GTs prior. Then there are people who've gone to one, which are typically what we call veterans at that point. Then there are people who are further along who have gone to 4 or more events, who we usually term as like experienced.
Try hard.
And so most of the people who are attending tournaments are at their first one. And then the vast majority of people are either going to their second event or their first event. And then everyone else is like less than like 5% is the rest, basically. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of people are only going to 0 to 1 event. And so that means that most people aren't necessarily interested in kind of the cutting edge tech that somebody's trying to win the ITC with, although maybe they want to consume that content. And I think Goonhammer put out some very good content based on their survey, where they saw that most people go there for their competitive content. I think people still want to consume competitive content, but they also want to consume their narrative content, because competitive balance affects the narrative part of the game, unless you are like extremely house ruling things. But it is good to note that the part of the market share of viewers that is made up by hardcore competitive people is very small. Whereas the market for people who are just here to either paint or to hobby or to play games at either RTTs or just with their friends is much, much larger.
Mm-hmm. The way I don't know, maybe I rationalize it, but I think it's fairly true. Like if even those people who go to one event, I think a lot of those in their groups would be considered like the hardcore competitive guy. Like so like even like they might be the minnows in like the overall competitive scene, but they're still like a tiny slice of probably the overall people who play the game.
Sure.
But I kind of always viewed competitive players, and I think this is why the competitive scene has taken the driver's seat of driving the game forward. But they're kind of, because they're people who will like rearrange their lives and like center their like vacation days and all their disposable income on going to places. They're the like the evangelicals. They're the like early adopters or whatever. The people who would like line up overnight to get tickets to the Warhammer thing are, I think, really represented by the competitive community. And we are the folks that, joins me, will pick up on stuff immediately, often before it's even a thing, right? So like, in a lot of ways, that might be a small group, but I think they're tremendously influential in their like wherever in the places that they come from and the other gamers that they interact with. Sometimes for good and sometimes for bad, but in general, they're going to be tournament organizers. They're going to be enthusiastic, engaged people. I think that are like really driven to like interact with and do more with the game. So although like, because that's often the narrative is that the competitive gamers are very small. Like if you look at competitive like gaming as a whole, like if we go over to like esports or whatever, I know it's probably like I lose the conversation by bringing it up, but I think they're like most people aren't going to go win like a massive Fortnite tournament. They're not going to win League of Legends, but they'll still watch those players play. And they'll still play the game themselves. You can even like look at like sports that you can play as an amateur, even into life, like tennis, golf, soccer, whatever. Like you still follow the very best and you still want to wear their sneakers. You know what I mean? Like even though you're not that person. So there's still like, even though it might seem silly, I think there is still like a real aspirational thing going on with 40K and the competitive scene itself that really does drive a lot of things. Like I play a dead game, but I spend all of my time looking for all of the information I can find from like the best lists that were being written 8 years ago. You know what I mean? Like even though it's a dead game, right? Yeah. Like I'm still looking to see like what were the things that people had figured out. So
the European meta is using lists from 7 years ago, but that's
so
so this is kind of moving off of this here and sort of like
hold on, what was that? What was that? Nathaniel?
If I hit the share screen button, will it break everything?
Most likely would do.
Where is it going to share to?
I don't know.
Okay,
let's find out.
Yeah, go for it.
So while Nathaniel's doing that, asking everyone, but starting with Danny, is the problem more a lot of majority of tournament attendance is people who only go to one of these events? Like, why do you think customer retention necessarily for some of these events isn't great?
I think it's a lot of time and energy and effort to compete in a Warhammer tournament. And so to ask somebody, and also like monetarily, it's expensive as well. Like it's an additional cost, like not only getting your army kind of ready to go into the meta, which it might not be if you don't have doubles or triplicates of some units, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have to take the weekend off and travel, and there's a hotel involved a lot of times usually. And so it's easy for people maybe to get away to one that's in their local area because they can just drive and stay at home at night, like, and that saves a lot of money. So that kind of, to me, kind of explains one or two events for most people.
Mm-hmm.
So I did share it. I don't know what it did.
Yeah. That's something you would agree with, Nathaniel, is kind of it's the cost associated with these events.
It's funny because I actually think it was Val who once said that. I think it was Val who said that winning the ITC is like a single man's game with no kids.
I don't think that was me, but I'll take it.
It feels like something you would say. I'm just going to put it out there.
So what you're saying is if I give up my children and get divorced, I will win the ITC.
Yes, 100%. So I stopped sharing it, but now I can tell you the percentage of people who go to one GT-sized event in our data set is 66% of people going to events. And then
we need 3% more.
Go to 2. So that's 84% of people who go to GT-sized events that we track are only going to 1 or 2 events. And then it's ever diminishing until you get to 0.011% at 13 GT-sized events.
Which we're very thankful for Art of War and their continual support of the large tournament scene. Actually, but Val, do you have anything else to add here on the discussion about sort of why most people only attend one large event?
I'm just going to. I didn't break it out into percentages here. Sorry, I actually, because I did this the first time I ever got the BCP data set. I did that exact same thing to see what the breakdown was. I'll share the thing. I wonder how much it's changed. I'm sorry, on the fly. I'll share it with you.
Danny, let's just
go ahead.
let's talk. Well, yeah.
Please,
So
connect with my people.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I pay $5 so I can chat with you in a Discord. It's all good. I'll send it to you later.
And then TFG Radio letting us know it was Salty John that said that quote.
Thank you.
Val. The pessimism behind it.
Okay, here we go. In 2016, there were 5,411 people who had attended ITC events, which is pretty wild. 59% only attended one.
So it's not that far off.
Little Pareto curve going on there, eh?
Oh, yeah. Hey.
Anyway, we'll continue.
Don't know what any of you are saying.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Some kind of Midwestern screech that I heard. I'm not really sure.
Oh, don't even get me started, Danny.
I think it's French Canadian. It's the only thing that I can assume. Chicago's in Canada. It must be.
Basically.
So what?
Canada wishes.
So the other podcast that really sort of got me back into 40K, sort of moving on a little bit here, was The Best General. Bronwitz's podcast where he went and saw sports psychologists and other things to kind of make him the best with the goal of sort of winning an event.
One of the most beautiful podcasts ever, yes.
Agreed.
And I think, Val, you'll agree, it was beautiful because it had a defined goal, it reached it, and then it just kind of stopped. They didn't try and do like Best General 2 or sort of things like that.
I was there when it happened. It was incredible. It was amazing. I can't believe it did happen. Still to this day, it was absolutely wild. And his attention to production quality. Each one was produced in a very like podcasty style. Like there are some that do that. Steve Joel, I think, does a good job at producing a very podcasty sound. We do a lot of like what I call the genre of circle jerk production style podcasting. So like, yeah, I think that was. I think it was
when you inappropriately touch yourself while you edit.
I'm at a standing desk, guys. So like,
yes.
Wow.
But yeah, Best General was, I think, probably one of the greatest 40K podcasts of all time. I mean, there were some really low moments in it too. If you listen to the whole thing, where he like really struggled against it. And it's hilariously when his sensei changed to Nick Nanavati is actually when it all sort of turned around for him too. But anyway, I can't say enough about the Best General. I think the Best General inspired me in a lot of ways to do the things I tried to do with Stat Center. And yeah, it was just awesome.
Yeah. So tell us about that. I mean, you brought it up. Oh, I wasn't going to. Stat Center was just to kind of placate your ego a little bit. It was like a phenomenal podcast. It brought out data set driven entertainment on a frequent basis, kind of going over the events at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with COVID, things kind of stopped on that front, and then many things happened, but mainly the events kind of spiraled into huge amounts. And we see kind of Stat Check kind of picking up the mantle a little bit here. What do you think? What drove you to kind of start like a Stat Center style podcast, and what do you think it was going to give the community at the time?
Well, I think it was a realization that I didn't know nearly enough to speak authoritatively about how to play the game, and that's for serious. I was like, I was on a lot of shows and being asked my opinion about stuff that I didn't have a valid opinion about. And I knew that there were lots and lots of people out there who had very valid opinions, who worked really hard at being good at this, and that I would see those same folks get basically called monsters and forums all over the place, and that competitive gamers are idiots and they ruin the game and all that kind of stuff. And what I saw when I went to events was, for the most part, really intelligent people trying really hard to be good at a thing. And so the real concept of Stat Center was trying to give voice to that. So although it was called Stat Center was a reference to a sports show called Sports Center.
What?
Yeah. So it was never really supposed to be, never really was supposed to be about stats. Although we did,
You're going to be
Peter
so embarrassed when you realize sports has stats as well.
But the point of it was narrative. Like the point of it was giving the competitive scene a narrative story and to give the players a voice in a place where they could, you know, if they won a tournament, they knew that they would get to have their 30 seconds on a show that had a decent listenership. It didn't blow anyone away, but like, so yeah, that was why. And it was definitely a passion project. And the reason it stopped is I lost my passion for 40K. That's basically it. And also, I think it was less needed. Like the community, I think, has developed a lot more in the sense that like a lot of people like there are a lot of platforms now for players to discuss what they do. There's like we have a number of competing stats bureaus now. Like there's the company itself is a lot more open to the concept of highlighting players and performance of factions and armies and stuff. So I don't know if the vacuum is there that I felt really necessitated the show to exist, and maybe that's why I've just never been able to get up the mojo to do it again.
We're excited for Old World Center to come in 2 to 5 years. But Danny, what is this? So kind of moving on, because we talked about kind of things we love. We joked a little bit about shows we genuinely love, by the way. We're just giving you a hard time, so you comment, like, and subscribe. But what is the space missing right now, Danny? We have like a lot of content out there. COVID and people being kind of locked in with an Amazon account led to like an explosion of creation. Not that kind, but of content. What are we missing in the current meta or podcast landscape?
The current podcast meta. I like it.
Yeah.
I think an overall show that was like both that focused not only on like narrative play but also on some competitive play and also hobby stuff and just being like a super generalist but like with a really relatable cast, I think could do very well right now.
What if they always made some double entendre style dick jokes?
I mean, man, that sounds like an amazing podcast. You know, maybe not even limited to one game. You could talk about 40K. You could also talk about fantasy sometimes.
I do enjoy, like, I know, Danny, we haven't really, Mob Rules we failed at this past year in general for many reasons.
Mob Rules was on the data slate, and then I took it off.
Well, no, please, please continue. So I can be...
The joke was that there were no changes because there were no episodes.
That's right. But like I said, there was a part of me which was thinking that I think the reason we haven't super recorded or been driven to do so is because like the itch kind of gets scratched by this on a weekly basis, right? So, you know, maybe we'll do some things, but like we have pretty much free reign. So this is sort of what Mob Rules would be if we were told to keep it around an hour and do it once a week.
True story.
And we're about to land this puppy right on the deck of that aircraft carrier.
Bump those brakes.
Hey, what you will. I am a professional.
Oh, I got something, guys. I just wanted to let everyone know that at Frontline Gaming, if you go to www.frontlinegaming.org and then you erase it, and you go to the Steam store, you can get Vermintide 2 for free on Steam.
Why are you promoting?
Just letting you know.
They're a massive company.
What?
Jump off this cast. Go get Vermintide.
Vermintide 2. Also, tickets for Cherokee Open are in fact for sale. And speaking of other games, Marvel Crisis Protocol, some really cool new Frontline Gaming terrain was released for that. It's on sale now.
It does look really cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, and if you use the link in this episode, we'll get a kickback, and we'll keep talking about weird stuff that makes no sense, and it's sort of 40K related, but not really.
Vaguely has a narrative thread that goes throughout the whole hour-long episode.
Yeah, I think Danny's right. I think the thing I'm missing most in the content creation space is basically the independent characters. And I hate to say it that way, because Val's turned me around in the whole hobby progress thing, where I'm listening to old ones, I'm like, let's skip this forward. But just
unless you're like really invested in those people, like I don't care. You know, I think that's kind of like what happened. And like the point of that, and independent characters did it because he was a fetishist for audio quality, so like he had really good production value, and they had really tight notes, and they produced the show once a month, although it was probably the same duration as a lot of shows are that do once a week. They did take a month to do each show, or maybe usually once. I don't think they ever did semi-monthly. Anyway, but like Independent Characters was again really quality production with like a really clear vision for what the show was, and it was like the singular vision of that one guy, that one Tuttle, if you will. And I don't know, it was great. I love the Independent Character. I go back and listen to him sometimes.
Yeah,
that's actually the one show that I never really listened to that's considered a classic in like 40K podcast circle.
It's a good show.
And kind of well, go.
I'm sorry. I was going to say another thing that they had that they lost over time was Insider Edge. They were like he had like sort of an inside scoop with Forge World and for like Horus Heresy and like a lot of the Horus Heresy books that were coming out and the Imperial Armor stuff, and like he had developed sort of a good connection to those guys. And again, like that inside scoop, because they have official people that they give stuff to, like our friends at Mob Rules. Like that particular thing that they had, they kind of lost over time, and they stopped doing those super in-depth reviews of things as the show went on.
I think some of that was their in-depth insider person was Alan Bly.
Yes, yeah, for sure, but not the only one. And also, I think like a lot of that core content that they really were passionate and loved just didn't continue much past that as well.
Like that happened, then they stopped making Imperial armors. They stopped doing kind of the things like that, and I kind of. But I kind of agree. Like Dan said, we need guys, go out by yourself. It's called a Rudecaster. I'm a big fan of it. Fantastic audio quality for the price. Get yourself a couple microphones. Produce some content. Make what you want to see in the world. Send it to Val, and he'll definitely put it on a Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's on the whiteboard. I do like that I'm slowly making that a thing. We're going to wrap it up here for tonight for our least planned show, but I think not our worst, which I think is high praise. We can put that on a tagline. Before we're going to go around here. We're starting to start at the top of the TVs. Danny, anything you want to add here before we sign off?
No, I think I'm good. I'm glad that we got to chat a little bit about some really like interesting subjects in podcasting here. And I think we're able to balance them out a little bit better. Yeah,
for sure. Nathan, what you got?
So I also found Stu Black's record, by the way.
Oh!
In our overall
Discord, by the
in
way.
our overall data set for the Coventry 2-day event, just so you're aware. With Ultramarines.
Did you spell Stu right, Val?
Hey, I did not spell Stu right.
that might be the problem. He placed 106 out of 111 people, despite not winning a game. So there you go. Otherwise, this was a lovely episode. It was very different than I thought it was going to be when me and John were originally talking about what the episode would be like, which is actually for the best.
Yeah, that was a very mean episode. I don't think there would have been any grim after
It's true. The notes from that don't need to see the light of day. We can take that burn book and go out and burn it.
The Mob Rules would have come back purely because we would have been fired.
It would have been Mean Girl Rules, to be fair, is what we would have had to change the show to.
Mob After Dark. Awesome. Check out Stat Check wherever good stats are found, and also on Comp 40K on Mondays when Cliff tells us all it's all busted or it's all fine. Also, their podcast every Tuesday, live on YouTube, or you can also catch the audio recording. Guys, I'm so sorry. I first want to apologize to the live viewers. I gave you no interesting pictures this week. We just got a beautiful stack of TVs. This was solely for the podcast listeners. So obviously next week, we're going to have Evan Van Dyke back on, and we're going to do nothing but pictures, which we will not explain. So I'm very looking forward to that. Val, do you have anything here before we sign out?
Excuse me. No, it's always a pleasure. Great to be on the show with you guys again. And I think getting back to the purpose of podcasting, it was a pretty rough couple of weeks for me and the fam very recently. And in a very odd but real way, these sort of shows, I think, always make you feel connected to folks, even if you're just listening. So perhaps that's the biggest value we got. And you guys are a bright spot in my week. So thanks for having me. Aww.
Dude, every time. You're just the co-host now. We're always going to do 3 or 4. Yeah, so we're going to be back next week with Ev Valdak. We're going to take Val up on his offer 2 weeks from now. We're going to post a link or an email
Yeah.
invite on the Frontline Gaming community page. And we're just going to cold call people. Come on, jump in the show. Say the things. We maybe have to dial up the time delay a little bit to the stream.
There's no time
but
delay.
come on. See how easy this really is. But we'll also be talking the highest highs, the lowest lows. And thank you everyone for watching. And as always, it's pretty grim after dark.
Bye-bye.
Everyone's mics are still hot.